Welcome to another session of Coffee and Conversation. My name's Dom Courtney. I'm the Executive Officer of Outdoors Queensland. Mark Squires is my co-host, and thanks again, Mark, for all your great work. I'd like to welcome any members of the Outdoors Queensland board. I haven't got the list there in front of me of participants. I'm not sure if we've got any board members with us, but also members of the organisation and any others who are joining us from across Queensland and across Australia. So as I said, we are recording the sessions. This is our third session this year. So welcome again to everyone who joins us there every couple of weeks. And we'll keep promoting them and keep on going as they're, as we keep on, finding things to discuss as we go along. So welcome. I've just got a quick agenda there. It's a few things on there, but also the bottom one is always, I like to say, if there's any other topics that you want to discuss, it's your session. So please let us know. Either put something in the chat or put your hand up, and we can add to this as we go along. There's quite a few things on here. Some of them we'll go through fairly quickly. Others might take a little bit more time, as you might expect. But we'll get that happening. Go along. But if there's something that you particularly a burning issue that you don't see on the agenda there, please let us know. These are all about what's important for you to learn about or to share with everyone else on the call. That's probably the biggest part of what this is all about. So feel free to pop it in the chat or just let us know. I just wanted to flag up front the Outdoors Queensland's annual general meeting, and that's happening in just over a month's time in Brisbane. We're hoping to have both face-to-face and online attendance. We just need to get that sorted out how we're going to do it, make sure it's all constitutional, that sort of fun and games. And we'll send out some information about it very shortly, including the forms for nominations for the board and also proxies. And I'll just put that bottom point there, that members have to be financially current and have up-to-date authorised rep details lodged with us to be able to vote or appoint proxies. So just wanted to flag that as well. So we'll send some more information out to our members, but just want to take the opportunity to flag that today. So if there's any questions about that, you can feel free to contact Mark or myself too, later on, or we can might have a chance to talk about it later on in the meeting. The Brisbane off-road cycling strategy. So this is the Brisbane City Council. This strategy and feedbacks. The strategy was reduced in December. Feedback closes end of February. So we will be putting in a submission. Outdoors Queensland will, and our submission will cover off, obviously the strategy is focused on off-road cycling, particularly mountain biking, but our submission will also be about the needs of all people who engage in outdoor activities. And they do want submission from all interested people. It's not just about, they want to hear from mountain bike riders about what they're proposing. They want to hear from anyone who's interested in outdoor activities, or actually anyone who's interested in natural spaces management across the city. So I think it's a really good opportunity to provide the council with feedback on what could be a really important strategy as far as the future access to a lot of the natural space that the capital, the Queensland's capital does manage, the council manages. So I've got the link there to that strategy. It's a bit of a long web link, but I think Mark might be able to share that in the chat as well. So if you're interested in that, it closes at the end of February, so only a couple of weeks. So please have a look at that. And we will also publish our submission probably on our website. So yeah, that'll just have to get it done and get it all up on the website. So, any questions? If there's any questions, we're only a fairly small group today, so please feel free to unmute yourself and call out or raise your hand. I'll just sort of scanning through as well and keep an eye on the chat. But yeah. A few funding opportunities I wanted to raise as well. The Queensland Government's Fair Play Vouchers. Um, these are about, I guess it's about low income families, it's funding to help pay for registration fees. So yeah, so the applications are open now. They're going to close middle of March, but they often get completely used up before their deadline. So it's a good one to jump on. There's a lot more information on that website there, the Queensland Government website, but also you can email that Fair Play Vouchers email address that's on the screen. So, and I just saw Mark's just shared the Brisbane Council off-road cycling strategy. Just pop that in the chat, but there's also information around the Fair Play Voucher scheme as well, which a lot of our organisations will be well aware of and probably already all over it. Moving right along, I mentioned this one last session we had, the Small Business COVID-19 Adaptation Grant. This is another Queensland Government one. It's closed for Southeast Queensland businesses, but it is still open for regional Queensland businesses. And there's $50 million was allocated to regional Queensland businesses. And I checked their website on yesterday, I think it was, and it said 95.4% of the funds have been requested already. But that remaining 4.6% is, by my mathematics, which it's been a while since I've studied maths, but it's about $2.3 million still available for regional Queensland businesses. So you can, businesses can obtain between $2,000 and $10,000 per business. So I guess the reason I'm bringing it up again is really about, I'd rather see our organisations, our businesses get in for a chop of that than have that money go back into consolidated revenue. So if there's a couple of $1 million there and up to 10,000 per business, I think, it's got to be worthwhile to have a look at it and see if you are eligible to put in an application. So yeah, I just wanted to flag it again because it is still there, and I think it's worth a mention. Has anyone on the call actually applied to it? We had a couple of people last year who talked about it and said it was really good. I don't know if anyone else has had a look at it or had any issues with eligibility. Does anyone want to talk about that one? Nope. Okay, we'll keep on rolling. This next one's not about businesses, it's actually about community groups. So it's a federal government Stronger Communities program, it's called. So they've allocated $150,000 per federal electorate. And it's all about small capital projects. You have to have the project complete by the end of the year. The strange part of it is the closing date for applications is the 22nd of March, so there's a little bit of time. But the issue is to get an application, you've got to first speak to your local MP or contact your local federal MP to get an invitation to apply. So there's a bit of a process. So I'd say you contact your local MP as soon as possible. And the other thing that says on their website, which I'll put that link there at the bottom of the screen, it says that they're only funding 20 programs, 20 successful projects per electorate. So even though it's between 20 grand and 2 grand, there's 150 grand on the table. So I guess they're trying to work out how they're going to do it. So I just saw Andrew has just added in Fairfax, you can put in an EOI before the 19th of Feb, which is next week. And then they do a short list of people to apply. So there you go. So that might be how some of the federal electorates are managing it. I think I saw the same thing for Brisbane. The federal member for Brisbane is saying the same thing. So maybe that's a system they're trying to put in place to manage it. So if you're interested as a community group, have a look at that website. Check your eligibility, I guess, before you go contacting your local and your federal MP, and then jump on it and try to get it sorted. So it is, again, I'd love to see as many outdoor community groups getting into that scheme as possible. Obviously, it's amazing what our groups, could do with, funding of $20,000 from the federal government. So, yeah, I just wanted to flag that one and we also sent it out in a blast this week as well, just as a reminder or as a notification that it was out there. Andrew, did you want to comment on that one? You've just shared a link as well.
Yeah, sorry, that's just the link for the Fairfax one. That's how they're doing it. I think probably quite a few electorates will be doing similar, but that's the Fairfax process there. If anyone is in Fairfax.
Thanks, mate. We don't want everyone bombarding Fairfax if you're not in there, but yeah, thank you for sharing that as an example.
Well, us and Majimba got funding a few years ago at the same time, so Apex Majimba did. So
yep. Oh, good. Yeah, no,
and I think Apex Majimba got a second round last year as well. So
okay, I think this is like round 6 of this program. I didn't write it up on the screen because I couldn't remember when I was doing the slide, but I think it's round 6, so it is an ongoing one. And they've changed some of the stuff about contributions to the scheme this year. I think they've changed a few things in recognition of the difficulties relating to COVID. So it has changed a little bit. So it might be worth having a look at criteria on their website. So yeah, and I think yeah, we've got that one there. I think Mark should be able to share that the link to the website as well. So thanks, Andrew. Another one still on small business, or back to small business. This one, I mentioned this a couple of weeks ago that the Minister for Small Business had been hosting some small business roadshow across Queensland. So that's continuing through February and into March now. They've put some more dates out on that one. So I don't know if anyone got to any of the ones that were on last week, but I was wondering if anyone had been on. I just wanted to flag it because I think it's worth meeting with different ministers to make sure that issues that are affecting small businesses in the outdoor sector, it's a great opportunity to tell a minister who is has some skin in the game in relation to that. So I don't know if anyone had any opportunities to go to the other ones. I haven't got them off the top of my head. I think there was up in Mackay, Rockhampton, maybe Townsville and Cairns, I think, that they held the ones in the last couple of weeks, and they might have done it with Gold Coast as well. But yeah, there's quite a few sessions still coming up. So if you get a chance, it might be a good opportunity to go along and talk about, issues that you have as far as, speaking to a minister is always a good opportunity, and also to represent the outdoor sector if you're willing to do that, and happy to speak about that. And tell them how good Outdoors Queensland is too, if you feel like it. Yeah, so that's that one. Does anyone want to speak about that? Does anyone have any comments on that one or had any experience with it? I'm just conscious that sometimes I keep on charging through these things and I don't pause to give you a chance to have a say. So if you do want to have a say, please just sing out. Inside the Outhouse, we've mentioned this one a few times. First and third Monday of each month now. Starting time 6:13 p.m. in Queensland, I believe. There's the topic this week for the webinar is actually about pay and conditions of employment in outdoor education. So relevant to a few people who are on this call right now, but also obviously relevant to a lot of our operators. There's also quite a lot of resources on their website, but yeah, I'll do my best to get to that webinar this Monday coming. So when I start turning to a pumpkin these days, the Outhouse committee are with us today. Haven't checked the list there. I don't think so. Anyway, well, yeah, if you want to join that discussion, I'm sure it'll be an interesting one to talk about what's going on in that space. So, yeah, it's check out their website, but also in the Outhouse. The QTIC insurance survey is also going on. So this is a national survey that QTIC's facilitating on behalf of, I think it's the Australian Tourism Industry Council. Part of it includes that they want to survey stakeholders involved in risk management. So that applies to a lot of our operators, obviously, a lot of you. So this survey closes today. So it's worth having a look at if you haven't yet had a look at it. The more we can provide feedback on these sort of things, the better, especially while insurance issues are a live issue for our sector. I think I just wanted to bring it to attention again and flag it. So I think it's worth a look if you can, if you have time today. I think it closes, I think it's 5 o'clock this afternoon. So limited time remaining, but maybe your feedback could be the key piece of work that that survey needs. So just to flag it for you. This one's just a general update, really. Life jackets, the Australian standard for life jackets, it changed a few years ago, but I think it's come into effect as of 1 January this year, because they had a bit of a phase-in period. So that AS 4758, so it's replaced the previous standards from that were there on 96. There's a bit of a grandfathering scheme as a, I don't know, it's probably a gendered term these days, but yeah, so there's been some information about it where you can actually still use a life jacket if you put it into service prior to 2016 when the new standard came into play, and it's still within its serviceable life. So that's sort of the rules. Scouts Queensland have put some information out to their members about this, and we'll probably share that to their network. But it's just a thing, I think, because a lot of people will have life jackets that are possibly under the old standards. I think it's worth having a look at, and it's certainly something you need to know as far as what the rules are. I put a link there to the Maritime Safety Queensland, MSQ's information on their website. And that's where I've taken that text on the screen, and Mark's just shared that in the chat. But the stuff that Scouts have gone a little bit further into it and contacted MSQ, Maritime Safety Queensland, to clarify a few things. So we'll look at sharing that information as well through either on our website as a news story or something like that. But it seems that the big piece is just making sure you've done the check that it's still within its serviceable life if you have got one that's under the old standards. So it probably needs some sort of formal documentation of that, and that it's still suitable to be used, I suppose. The last thing we want is an incident and someone coming back and saying, well, your life jacket didn't have the right, wasn't manufactured to the right standard. So I just wanted to flag that. Obviously, we're talking about a piece of equipment that's there to preserve life. So yeah, the best, it's not something we want to take for granted. So just wanted to flag that one. Does anyone have any information on that or further comments? No, cool. Yeah, we'll put some more information out about it. But yeah, if you we'll share what we can on that one, and maybe it's worth having a look at too, I think. Good old COVID. So we can all breathe out, but assuming we're in appropriate space and don't need a mask. The COVID safe future slide hasn't changed in the last couple of weeks, which is nice. The document that was previously known as the roadmap. The points along the bottom, the new normal, are really important. I think it's an important reminder that we think about, all those pieces, and they all come into normal everyday life, I suppose, these days. But there is still the information there about masks, particularly when at airports or on flights. And then, there's the other encouraging people to wear masks in other spots, so like with public transport or shopping centres, that's not an entry thing. And the other one is there when physical distancing isn't possible, encouraging masks in indoor and outdoor spaces. So I think mask wearing, certainly what I've seen in Brisbane, has dropped off remarkably since the restrictions were eased a couple of weeks ago, but we still do see people wearing masks around, obviously when they can't physically distance. So I think, those things are important to consider, those new normal topics. So the industry COVID safe plans, which are obviously a ongoing talking point for us, there haven't been any changes to the plans in the last couple of weeks. So we're still working on version 17 of each of the plans. So yeah, just wanted to flag that there hasn't been any further updates in the last couple of weeks. The outdoor rec activity providers, again, they've added a statement about the encouraging masks when it's not possible to physically distance. And then the bit about the indoor events, it doesn't really apply to our world, but they just clarified it's not just about major sport facilities. So it also is about ticketed allocated space, seating in indoor events. So it's not really our cup of tea, but it does potentially have some impacts for some people who might be delivering indoor events who are generally doing outdoor activities. So yeah, if there's any questions on either of the plans, please send me out or pop something in the chat. I'm sort of conscious I sometimes rip along a little bit quickly. So, so the outdoor education providers industry plan. I mentioned this last time a couple of weeks ago. We have been we've requested some changes from Queensland Health, working with Sport and Recreation Department of the Queensland Government in relation to this. The requested changes are up there on the screen. Last Friday morning, I had a meeting with Queensland Health and Sport and Rec because they had requested some additional information. We're working through that. Their main point of concern that came out of that discussion was really about the application of the plan to groups of adults without children present. So that sort of thing. So that wasn't something that they saw this plan as working within, and they were a bit concerned about that. And I think we need to do a little bit more work on that to help them understand it better, and they might actually need some serious changes to what we've got in the plan to get that across the line. So my current thinking, which I've sort of spoken to people from Sport and Rec about, is going to reduce delays in trying to get the other changes through. What I'm thinking is we split it into two different requests, and we put in an updated version, which would be dealing with the application to music camps, faith-based camps and sporting camps, the venue staff being able to service multiple client groups, and those cleaning and hygiene protocols. So we can put that in immediately, and they were quite happy with that. We had to just talk through a couple of things on that, and they're quite happy with that. But the piece on the groups of adults probably needs a little bit more work. So that's sort of my current thinking. I just wanted to flag that and see if anyone, has any concerns about that as a way of going forward to try to get the first lot of changes done, and then we can talk further about the application to solely groups of adults. Does anyone have any comments or questions on that?
From our perspective, the one we really want to get through as quickly as possible is the staff able to service multiple client groups. So, and frankly, the cleaning and hygiene protocols as well. So having those three separated, if the adult one is the sticking point, to separate that out from the other three and get those other three through as soon as possible would be great. But just a comment on groups of adults, because since December, there's really not a lot of difference between the outdoor ed plan as it applies to adults and say the tourism and accommodation plan. Because with adult groups, we have to provide the 4 meters squared in accommodation, but we're working with the 2 meters squared everywhere else for adults. So, yeah, I mean, for an adult group, it wouldn't be difficult, I think, for most operators to actually shift across to tourism and accommodation plan for like a weekend and do it anyway, outside of, yeah, see, even you just couldn't do a group of 300 adults at a Mapleton. We'd be capped at 200 anyway. So
because of your area that you have available for accommodation. Yeah. So the only piece where I'm trying, it's sort of thank you for those comments. Like that's sort of where I was thinking, because I think we're better off getting the other points that I've got there on the screen through and then sorting the other one. The only bit there it's still a bit confusing that I see is actually if you have one group of adults on site and a group of kids on site, and how you need to keep those groups separate, which isn't, that stuff's not in the tourism accommodation plan. But the practical reality is most places wouldn't have a group of adults and a group of kids on site at the same time. So I don't know that it's actually a major concern. So I'd really appreciate.
Even if you have that situation, and I would say this to Queensland Health, you're actually better off having that arrangement go ahead under the outdoor ed plan as it currently is, because we will put them in zones. And we won't take more adults than we can because of the 4 meters squared in the accommodation rule that applies to all adults, whether it's children or adults, and they're separated anyway. Whereas some venues are operating under the tourism and accommodation plan, and they don't need to observe a zone. So, like, it's actually in Queensland Health's interest to go with what we currently have.
Yeah. Thanks. Yeah, that's a good point. And it's certainly something we're trying to work through. And yeah, like I say, I think the option is to split out the other things, push on with those, and then circle back around onto the groups of adults. But yeah, I completely agree. I think what we've got seems to be working quite well for the industry. I appreciate any other comments anyone else has as far as, you know, that sort of idea. Yeah, does anyone else have any comments on it? Either way? No? Yeah, so I think what I'll do, I'll just keep on working on that, and I think I can knock over the other, you know, the bottom, well, you know, the 3 of those 4, and then come back to the adults once we can go a bit further. I think we need to do a little bit more work on it, but I concur with Andrew's comments about the way the outdoor ed plan is set up. It actually does provide quite a high level of confidence regarding particularly management of different groups. So yeah, that's certainly and that was acknowledged by Queensland Health in their meeting. They were actually really quite complimentary, saying, you know, we haven't had dramas with any school camps. They were very aware of, you know, what we do, and some of the stuff we explained to them about, particularly around the staff being able to service multiple client groups, that they hadn't twigged to what we were talking about there, and that was why it was good to have it was just an online meeting, but it was good to just be able to explain some of that, and I think they appreciated it once we explained it in a little bit more detail. So yeah, they were quite open to those sort of changes, and we were justifying on the basis of, you know, the management of staff loads and fatigue and even stress. So they're good words that Queensland Health appreciate when we're, you know, not just making it up. We are actually trying to manage those things for the, you know, for the best way we can for the staff and also for the clients. So they were certainly appreciative, I think, of those issues. Does anyone have any other questions on any of these requested changes? As I say, they haven't been approved, so we will let you know as soon as any changes are approved. But at the moment, the plan is what's there at the minute. And the piece on adults, I think we're going to have to do a little bit more work on that. So I know that Mark, I think, had a request about that from one of the operators just this week, and we've sort of been looking at how we make that work in everyone's interest. But at the moment, it is the plan actually references the tourism accommodation plan, and what we're looking at doing is referencing the other plans that would apply specifically. So if you had a faith-based camp, we'd reference the places of worship plan, but we say that we can deliver the accommodation side of things, particularly under the outdoor ed providers plan. So that's sort of the way it would work. But the activities themselves, when they're delivered, you'd still need to understand the way the other plans are set up and what are the protocols in those other plans.
So would you suggest we shouldn't be taking bookings of adults, or?
It doesn't say that in the plan. It doesn't say you can't do it. It says it's primarily bookings of school-aged children, blah, blah, blah. Yeah. But what I would say is if you've got adults, like what you said before, our plan actually says accommodation for adults, you need to comply with the requirements of the tourism accommodation plan, like you said before. So you're not doing anything wrong by doing that, but you just need to understand which plan you're operating under and the different protocols in those plans. So, which I'm sure you are and other operators are doing, but it's certainly not saying, I think the thing you need to be aware of is that it can kick you onto the other plan rather than doing everything, under the outdoor ed plan. And some things are virtually exactly the same, like you said, as far as the density requirements and that sort of thing for adults under our plan or under the tourism and accommodation plan, because that's how they've been written. So they just link up the different requirements in the plans. All right. Yeah, as I say, we are working with that with Sport and Rec staff, and they've been really helpful in trying to get it sorted out. It's certainly, it's not just Outdoors Queensland doing it. It's working with Sport and Rec, because that's the role that the different departments have in this space. So yeah, I just wanted to flag that as well. Just on implementation, I just wanted to do another check. Are there any other issues about the protocols that I may not be aware of? I know people, often contact me, whether it's an email or give me a call. That's great, but I just thought while we were, we've got a little bit of time, are there any other issues that have raised their heads even with the start of this new school year? I was thinking, I don't know if anyone's come across some other complication or something that hasn't cropped up before that you might want to mention. Happy if you want to send me an email or give me a call if you want to talk about it privately, but I wondered if there's anything that any of you wanted to raise here as a, even sometimes there are things that other people have already experienced and might have had a solution to, or might have already asked a question from Sport and Rec as well. Does anyone have any sort of burning issues, or even if they're not burning, just smouldering, that you think might be worth raising?
Just a comment on those proactive site visits. We requested one, and we were told that they're so flat out and so short staffed that it wasn't a priority. So
Okay.
So on the phone for about half an hour, they just asked me, what we did and all that sort of thing. I think they were satisfied that we kind of knew what we were doing. So, but yeah, that proactive site visit, it does sound like they're under the pump a bit. So.
Okay. Yeah, and that is also different public health units. It's probably up to what they're able to do as well. But okay, yeah, that's I guess it's disappointing, but maybe it's also a vote of confidence that maybe they're prioritising other areas that they think might be more risk, and they're happy to spend half an hour having a chat to you rather than half a day coming out and wandering around the site. But okay, thank you for that. That's good feedback on that one. I've heard of a few people who've had the proactive site visits and were very spoke well about the experience. So yeah, I just think it's worth, maybe if you're interested, maybe just give them a call. But yeah, I think we have to accept that our public health units are probably a little bit busy at the minute, and have been for about 12 months. So, yeah, I think that's it. And the other one is that the email address for official inquiries about the industry plan, it's actually changed. So I've updated it on the screen there. It's a very catchy DTIS sport COVID-19.coro. at, etc. So yeah, the Sport and Rec is now part of Department of Tourism, Innovation and Sport, which that came about after the election late last year. So they've updated that email address. So yeah, just wanted to flag that as well. If you do have any specific questions about the plan, you can send them to me, but it's also worth sending them off to Sport and Rec, and they can give a formal response. But if you wanted to, please copy me in on an email so that I know what's going on as well. And yeah, happy to just to be involved in that process as well if you do have something for them. So yeah, that's just an updated email address. I just saw on the comments, Danny just said, I wonder if self-serve buffets will return. And Andrew said not for the foreseeable future, he thinks, and I would tend to agree with that. I think the Chief Health Officer was very firm on that last year, and I don't imagine there's anything much that's changed in that space, other than I guess the mask wearing has become more likely. So maybe that's the only one. But even now, there's certainly it's food service is still a big issue for camp operators, but also for non-profit organisations like clubs, that side of things. It's a big one. I just saw Andrew's comment there about staffing costs in hospitality. Yeah, it's pretty harsh, and like particularly for clubs also, where if you're going to provide sandwiches, they should all be individually wrapped, and you end up with a whole lot more wastage. You end up with that sort of issue. So it has a bit of a unfortunate roll-on effect, I think, and it's probably something you need to have a good think about how to manage it, and making sure that whatever we're doing is COVID safe, but then we also get the environmental side of things as well. But I know, everyone in the outdoors is conscious of, but yeah, it makes things hard when you're trying to manage or balance things up both ways. So yeah, just wanted to flag that as well. And Danny's just said, yeah, same issue with costs. Yeah, it's I think that's across the board. A lot of people are finding that, and then obviously cleaning costs as well is still hurting people. And I guess the other part is whether a lot of clients may not have quite the amount of money that they did have to spend on some things. I guess there's others who aren't doing the an overseas school trip, so maybe there is money that could be spent locally as well in their budgets. I'm not too sure, but yeah, it'll be an interesting process right throughout that. Has anyone found that schools that might have otherwise, or even other clubs who might have otherwise been doing an overseas trip, have looked to line up for local camps or local experiences? Cancelled Canberra trips, Jess has just mentioned. Did you want to talk about that, Jess?
Hello, everyone. We probably just in the last few weeks have got between 10 and 15 schools that have just either pulled the pin on Canberra because it's just a bit too fickle for them at the moment, or even one that pulled the pin on like literally this week, and they were going start of next term kind of thing. So there's a massive increase in that for us, and then it's a bit hard because obviously term one's huge for everyone, but yeah, trying to fit them in before the end of the year for the year sixes and get that camp experience for them. It's a bit hard, but yeah, we're trying our best here. But that's our biggest one at the moment, I'd think, in the for this year at least so far. Yeah.
Yeah, I know there's a lot of schools obviously do those Canberra trips, and I understand there's funding, and they also go and get a photo with their local MP. Maybe we need to suggest the MPs repurpose that funding to local camps. Wouldn't that be a wonderful thing? So yeah, it's good to hear that there's schools approaching you about making up for that trip that they would otherwise do down to Canberra and those sort of trips. So I think those sort of things. I guess the other one is again, any interstate trips you'd be a bit. So a lot of operators a lot of schools clients might be reluctant to do that. Yeah, as far as any interstate travel at all, I guess is a little bit still dicey. So yeah, I don't know anyone from the club side of things. Are there any comments on those sort of trips. I just saw Andrew say Northern New South Wales schools aren't keen to book in Queensland, which is yet another problem. Yeah.
Hi, Dom. Yeah, Tom Vaughan here. Just a quick one. A friend of mine runs Moreton Experience over on Moreton Island, and before 2020, he was seeing a drop-off in schools coming over because of safety issues on the island. Then, of course, last year it completely collapsed, but this year his business has gone gangbusters where, as you say, people aren't going overseas and they're looking for that Australian experience, and Moreton Island's one of them.
Yeah, that's good to hear, isn't it? I guess, I mean, last year would have been, was awful for a lot of people, a lot of businesses, but yeah, it's good to hear that is happening with Moreton. I think the same story is at in Jerrabah or Stratty. I know the businesses over there are certainly been picking up and seem to be really thriving now. So, and a part of that, I think, is the fact that people can't go overseas or even interstate. So they're places that are on our doorstep that maybe have probably been ignored for a long time, particularly in southeast Queensland. There's those spots. And the other one that I think is going to be interesting is probably trips right across Queensland, but also the Great Barrier Reef. And I'm sort of hopeful that then maybe we get some more the environmental awareness of the state of the Great Barrier Reef, as far as if there's more people going up and seeing what's going on the reef. You know, people are, I've been told, you know, the southern Great Barrier Reef is quite amazing, but the far north of the Great Barrier Reef still had very significant coral bleaching again. So maybe that sort of thing, you know, we were all talking about that a couple of years ago, and then the bushfires hit, and then we had the COVID outbreak, and I don't know, it seems to have dropped off the radar a little bit. Maybe it's time we sort of had our eyes a little more closely on our own backyard and what's going on here and what needs to happen. But yeah, thank you, Tom. It's great to hear, and I guess give your friend a bit of a pat on the back, and it's great to see that, or to hear that they're doing well this year. So yeah. I just moved on to the COVID safe events while Tom was speaking there. They have updated the information on the website about COVID safe events and that industry framework for COVID safe events. There still has that interplay between industry plans, but then there's extra information about event management. So it's certainly worth having a look at the website for COVID safe events. And they also have a frequently asked questions section, which is pretty good, but that hasn't been updated since like November last year. So just bear that in mind as well. There is a bit of an interplay between the industry plans and the framework for COVID safe events. And that's referenced in the industry plan, but yeah, it's certainly worth just bearing in mind. So, and you can contact the department again if you have any questions about that. And the interesting bit now is tourism and sport are now in the same department. So I think that's probably going to be good as far as more cooperation between tourism and sport. So I guess at the moment they answer to the same Director General and the same Minister. So it'd be nice if there was that cooperation. And I'm not saying there wasn't last year, but yeah, they're in the same department now. So there's certainly I'd hope there's plenty of clarity there and cooperation. And I know all the different departments have worked really closely together regarding COVID recovery, obviously with Queensland Health, but also different parts of different departments have done a lot of work in cooperation. You know, the stuff that the small business side of things have been doing, and Sport and Rec, I know, have been doing a lot of work, and community, Department of Communities as well, in relation to community organisations. So, you know, I think it's shown the level of cooperation that's required to actually respond to situations like that. And I'd like to think that might continue beyond the crisis, and once we're back into whatever the future state is, maybe that's another piece that there'll be some learnings that will come out of that for right across government, but also across society. I think even these sort of sessions that we've been running, the thing that's always, I think I said it last year, I've said it before, that the cooperation and the help that everyone's been sharing with each other has been really wonderful to see. So yeah, I think there's a whole level of change that might be brought about because we've gone through this crisis together. But sorry, I got on a rant. COVID safe events, any questions, any comments?
Yeah, has there been any more feedback from Queensland Health about that wording on their decision tree? Where basically any multi-day event involving accommodation requires a COVID safe event plan?
Yeah, they haven't got back to me on that one. I think it is very confusing. I couldn't agree more, mate. And you and I have had a few conversations about it, and they've certainly are talking about it and trying to get it sorted. So there is some work going on it, but it hasn't been sorted out yet, as far as I know. So it seems like if there's changes that it's actually again, that's about the interactions between one document and another. And I think the way these documents have all been rolled out, they weren't all, I don't think there was ever an opportunity to sit down and say, okay, what's the effect of this document on this other one or this instruction? So that's the piece of work that I think it probably actually needs to be done. But the hard part is these documents keep changing as well. So yeah, it's a work in progress, I think, mate. But I'll keep you informed if I do hear about that one. So.
Well, they're about to get a COVID-safe event plan for a group of 9 people with 1 night's accommodation. So,
okay, that might be a good test case. Yeah, obviously, I don't consider that. I don't think that is actually within what they think is an event. But yeah, let's let me know what the response is to that.
Yeah, I'll be fascinated.
Dom, it's Tom again.
Yeah, Tom.
Yeah, here's something dear to your heart. This COVID-safe event. We walk, I'm with Brisbane Bushwalkers, and we walk on southeast Queensland water land. In the past, we've been getting a land access deed where we get permission to walk on there. We tell them where we're walking, and then every time we go and do a walk on their land, we just ring them up, tell them how many people are walking, what day, and that's it. And then we do that for a year. We put in another land access grant. And now they've basically come back and said for this year, a bushwalk is classed as an event. So when we want to walk on southeast Queensland water land, we've got to put in a COVID-safe event plan. And it talks about generators and temporary buildings and food service trucks. And I keep going, we're going for a bushwalk, mate, And now it seems we're jumping through hoops because we used to deal with recreation at Southeast Queensland Water. Now we're dealing with properties at Southeast Queensland Water, and it's just I don't know whether maybe they don't want us to walk on the land, but yeah, it's just horrible. Anyway, that's my problem.
You'd only need an event plan if it's more than 1,500 people for an outdoor event, though. Like, how many of you are there?
I don't think there'll be 1,500.
A minimum 4 and a maximum 12. So I'm thinking, yeah, like it's crazy. And like even the fact that we have to put in this, because each year we have to go, this is our 20 million public liability insurance. This is our, our COVID safe plan. We got a checklist. And this time they want us to put in a safety management plan, which covers snake bite and injury, which is stuff, we've got a plan. That's why we've got insurance. And, because it's a incorporated association, we have legal requirements to provide public liability insurance and all this other stuff. If we didn't have a COVID safe plan, we wouldn't be walking. It's just crazy stuff.
Yeah. So, Tom, I'm not sure I think you are aware, but I used to work for Secure Water, and I was the recreation coordinator when we brought in that system about, the idea was to have, people apply for like the year-long permit, like you said, and then just let us know when you're going to be in there. And that was done to streamline things for clubs, but also for the staff, because otherwise you've got to get an application for every single time you want to do a bushwalk, and you may not know your whole calendar at the start of the year. So I was involved in that, and I've still, I'm in contact with the people at SEQ Water, as one of the significant land managers in Queensland. So if you want to send me some details about that, maybe you and I could have a chat about it, and happy to help you with that, because that seems to go against what they were trying to do, and what I understand. It just seems a bit odd. So happy to talk to you separately about that one if you like, and see if I can help you with that.
Yeah, I knew you were involved in that. That's why I mentioned it.
Yeah.
But I think they've got new staff this year, and I think they're just finding their way. But yeah, it's just got crazy, Anyway,
maybe we need to educate them a bit, Tom, and help them with their work a little. But yeah, I know I've literally spoken to SEQ Water people in the last week, so I've certainly got some contacts there that we can see what we can do about that. So if you want to send me through some info, actually our email address, I should have mentioned, is actually updated as well, but the old eo@corf.org.au will still work, but you'll see our new email addresses in all our publications and that sort of thing. But yeah, if you want to contact me about that, I'm happy to see if we can do something on that. We're almost at time. I just going back to the agenda, and I just saw there's been a few comments while we were talking there about particularly about the multi-day events that Andrew's just mentioned, and then Danny's made a comment, surely a group in residence is meeting together for the purpose, is not an event. The problem is this, that's the confusion that Andrew was talking about before about the interplay between the event framework, COVID-safe event framework, and the industry plans, and what actually is an event under their definition. And that's the confusion, I think, which Andrew's just put that. There's no precise definition of event other than planned public and social occasions, which, yeah, so it's, the confusion is, I think Andrew's just put that some people, some of the clients are saying, well, hang on, it looks like we might fit that, therefore we're an event, so we need to do an event application or event submission. So yeah, the checklist, it's all a little bit confusing and a little bit grey. So yeah, so there's still that information on their website. It's just when you get into the real weeds of what is an event and what isn't, it just seems a little bit confusing, and I think it could be clarified, and that's what we've approached Sport and Rec to ask them if they can help us with it, because I think if we're having that question, I can only imagine what some of the sports are dealing with, because I can't imagine that every time you had if you had a Saturday where you had games of cricket at a site, I don't think that's considered an event. That's what's dealt with under their session, but it comes into when there's accommodation, and then if you had a camp draft event where you're staying overnight, and then it's a 2-day event, that's the bit where it could kick in, and that's the bit that, so I think, is where it'll get confusing as far as that side of things. So yeah, it's still a little bit grey. So I think it's something we need to keep an eye on. Did you want to say anything more on that one, Andrew? I just saw you put another comment in there about multi-day events involving accommodation. Yeah, regardless of size, which again,
yeah, that's where the confusion is, because in some places, like including on that page, I'll flick it up so you can all see what I'm looking at. This one, like the main page for COVID safe events, does not separate out that multi-day accommodation according to indoor or outdoor. It just has that blanket statement on multi-day events requiring approval. Elsewhere in the actual event management industry plan, it suggests that multi-day event involving accommodation only applies to outdoor events, not indoor events. So I would suggest then for an outdoor education centre, which is primarily indoors, even though we've got outdoor in the name, then you don't need it. The advice for schools is that they can attend camp under the industry plan. But then the public health unit decision tree basically walks you through this path that if it involves accommodation, regardless of whether it's indoor or outdoor and regardless of size, you need a COVID safe event plan. So some groups are seeing that and basically taking a very, very cautious approach. I would suggest that they require one. So.
Yeah, and I think it comes down to getting right into those details and trying to work out what is and isn't applicable. So, yeah, I would say I don't want to alarm people too much about it, but we're trying to get it clarified and trying to get that sorted out in the background a bit. So yeah, I just wanted to thank you for that discussion. It's not an easy one. It keeps going around. So we've got just a couple of minutes left. I wanted to flag those funding opportunities that we mentioned earlier. Please have a look at them. Yeah, there'll be information. Obviously, there's links in the chat, particularly the federal government one. If you are interested in that one as a community organisation, make sure you contact your local MP and have a look at that website. Contact your MP to get the invitation to apply. Yeah, so they obviously go through a shortlisting process that Andrew mentioned before. The other one too, the next session in 2 weeks' time, February 26th, Mark's going to be hosting that one. I'm going to be having a day off. So please be nice to him while I'm absconding for a day. I'm sure you all will. But yeah, I'm not going to be here that day. So I'm having a bit of a sneaky long weekend, which is about a celebration that didn't happen for my wife and me last year because of a certain pandemic. So we're finally getting around to that. So only, I don't know, 8 months late, but yeah, we're off for a weekend. So yeah, Mark will be looking after you all next week, so next fortnight. So who knows what will happen, but I'm sure it'll all be good. So yeah, it's not sneaky now, Danny. Sorry, I shouldn't have told anyone. But yeah, she certainly knows about it, so I'm certainly not trying to sneak. Yeah, but yeah, and yeah, thank you, like obviously for your support right throughout all this. I mean, Andrew just said well-deserved weekend off, but yeah, I think all the work, and Mark's been a key part of that too, as far as getting the communications out to everyone and even talking through some of this stuff that a lot of you people have done with me of how does this even make sense and how do these things work? And I do appreciate that because there's a whole lot of different information out there. So yeah, really appreciate all the cooperation and the collaboration that's gone into all of this stuff for the last almost 12 months now. And on that, I think we're 6 weeks through this year already. So we're well over 10% of the year done. Not that I'm counting, but yeah, let's hope that obviously all these immunisations or vaccinations are happening sooner rather than later, and we can get back to whatever the new future normal is. So yeah, thanks very much for joining us today. We're pretty much on the hour now. Does anyone else have any other topics you wanted to talk about? Or if not, we might finish up on that point.
Yeah,
Tom?
just something for next week. Yeah, look, I've been looking into access to lip falls in Denman Scenic Reserve. It seems someone owns part of the access land and has put a fence across. So, yeah, the public can't get into lip falls in Denman Scenic Reserve, but it's probably something to talk about next week. I think I might have sent some details off to Mark late last year. But yeah, it's in Beachmont, so it's towards the Gold Coast, and it's something where we used to go walking regularly down around that area.
Does that involve the Department of Defence as well, Tom?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was defence land, but yeah, there's some private person owns land that the access track goes across, and they put a fence across it. But I've got a whole lot of background information from news clippings from magazines down there, and it's a bit hard to get a hold of, how they can get around this. But anyway, it's something probably for next week or next fortnight.
Has anybody spoken to the landowner there, Tom?
Yeah, there's actually a Beachmont action group. I can't think of the names. I think I sent something through to Mark Squires end of last year, but
Yeah, I've got some things there somewhere, Tom.
yeah, it's something. But the club, someone has sent me a whole lot of links to documents, but I can't get access to them because they're on a Google database somewhere. But supposedly they contain all sorts of newspaper clippings and magazine clippings dating back for years. Anyway, yeah. Anyway, we'll leave this for next week or next fortnight.
Thanks, Tom. Yeah, and Andrew Grant's just added also another topic about ringtail forest, about that going from forestry to national parks. So, Mark, we might have to do a little bit of inquiry on that one. I think there was talk about that again quite some time ago, but I haven't heard anything recently on that one. So
yeah, it occasionally hits the newspapers or the news up here, but I'm not sure where it's at just right now.
Yeah, because that's in, I was going to say that Mark's actually up on the Sunshine Coast, up Noosa way, so to Wanton. So that's in Mark's backyard as well. So yeah, maybe that's worth a little bit of investigation too, Mark. And just
do that
in our spare time. Yeah. All right. Well, thanks everyone for joining us again, and yeah, we might leave it there. And I hope you all have a terrific weekend and terrific experiences ahead in the outdoors. So, thanks very much for joining us again.